and Dr. Veronica Garcia will be joining us for that. And I thought this might feel a little better for the board to engage in the discussion this way. So we will start as ever with our Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the New Mexico flag in English and in Spanish, as well as our acknowledgement of tribal land. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among the united cultures. Saludo la bandera del Estado de Nuevo México, el simbología de amistad perfecta entre culturas unidas. Any acknowledgement of tribal land? We acknowledge that our Board of Education meeting is taking place on occupied indigenous land. We acknowledge the specific Pueblo lands and other tribal lands on which we stand. We honor these people, past, present, and future. We acknowledge the history and ongoing colonization of where we are sitting right now in New Mexico and in our country. We acknowledge our own place in the story of colonization. Thank you very much. We will go ahead and move on to approval of the agenda. Superintendent, do we need any changes?
No changes this evening, Board President. No.
Thank you.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Vice President Gozé.
I'll second.
Thank you, Secretary Anderson. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or otherwise? Okay, we've approved the agenda. Moving on to Roman numeral 2, introduction of interpreter. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble. Deputy Superintendent Romero, please.
Para asistencia de traducción en español, el señor Lucero te ayudará.
Thank you very much. Moving swiftly along to public forum. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble. With us tonight is Mr. Donarski, our PIO. Mr. Donarski.
Good evening, Board President, members of the Board, Superintendent Chavez. We have 3 people signed up for public forum comment tonight. All are on email. Ground rules for public forum, because I forgot last week. Public forum includes online and or virtual participation as needed, as well as in-person comments when the board holds in-person meetings. Please listen and speak with respect. No uncivil conduct will be permitted. Please do not discuss any specific student who is not your own. There will be no sharing of time. Self-monitor and observe the 3-minute time limit. I will give you a 30-second warning when your time is almost up. Public commentary and dialogue are allowed only during public forum, not throughout the meeting. Please search for answers on common ground. You may speak on any topic, whether it's on the agenda or not. Your input will be taken into consideration. Please be advised that the board may discuss your issue during the meeting, but by law, the board cannot take action on items that are not on the agenda. Please do not discuss employee matters which may result in disciplinary action. Instead, notify the employee supervisor, the Human Resources Department, or the superintendent. The first public forum submission is from Jennifer Warren. Greetings and thank you for your service to our schools. I teach first at Nina Otero, and I'm writing because I would very much appreciate a review of the Donors Choose organization, as it provides our students with so many needed supplies and learning materials that wouldn't otherwise be able to obtain. According to the fundraising guidelines recently shared, we will no longer be able to avail ourselves of this, and it seems quite a tragedy to turn down free offers of support. Thank you for your consideration on this topic. Next is Rebecca Scott Gonzalez. Good evening. Unfortunately, I'm unclear on the specifics of what tonight's presentation includes, but I would like to include my own thoughts. I've been a teacher with Santa Fe Public Schools since 2001. I attended Santa Fe Public Schools back in the 70s, and now my adult children also attended Santa Fe Public Schools. I've been a teacher caught in the loop of being in a school that might close, previously E.J. Martinez and currently Tasuke. My daughters attended Alford, which closed, and I attended Kane, which also closed down. I have also been a teacher caught in the RIF cycle, which needless to say has been traumatizing. I would love to see some redistricting so that schools that are underpopulated will receive more students. I've been told that Tasuke would need to hire and pay for our own bus driver in order to get another bus to bring students from overpopulated schools. I also wonder why some schools, if they do end up shuttering, can't be reimagined as early childhood centers run through the public schools or pre-K third early elementary learning centers. I think the way of pre-K 8th giant schools is not the way the district should be moving. Smaller magnet or neighborhood schools can be one of the keys to reimagining the district for the future. Why don't we call Massachusetts the state ranked #1 for public schools and maybe pick their brain? Respectfully, Rebecca Scott Gonzalez. The last public forum comment is from Steve Boyles.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here? Oh, perfect.
And, I would love to speak to the board if I may.
Yeah.
Hi.
And then I will have the timer right here.
Thank you very much.
I'll call up 30 seconds and then you'll
Good evening, everybody. I come to bring a petition from my neighbor and good friend, Laura Ward, my direct next-door neighbor. Ms. Ward's concern is the nuisance and potential harm from the commercial operation of the property at the previous County Elementary. Ms. Ward writes, noise. I can hear the trucks, generators, and other noise associated with deliveries early in the morning from inside my home. Oh, thank you. From inside my home, and of course from the backyard. The noise is not only a nuisance in the early morning, but also disruptive to my work. I work from home 50 to 70% of the time, normal business hours, and the noise from Gunham's operations is audible in my office, including during remote meetings. This is really consistent with what we found too. From the documentation, Kane was slated for 200 students, pre-K students, early learning center. And now they're producing 1,000 lunches a day. Our calculations say that if they had 200 students, it'd be about 2 truckloads of food a week. But the way it is now, it's about 27 truckloads of food. This is a serious imposition on us. I ask you to please re-examine this proposition of this commercial kitchen at Kane. It is really bending us out of shape. I wrote 2 petitions. Are we there?
No, you got a minute.
Okay. I wrote 2 petitions to Santa Fe Public Schools, specifically to Mr. Granata, and what I got back was the following statement. He seemed to feel that everything they were doing was just like a public elementary school. And the demised premises shall be used solely for early learning child services. We don't see how 1,000 lunches a day from a commercial facility that's going off station is consistent with early childhood services. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And that concludes public forum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donarski. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to Roman numeral 4 and our union update. This must be the date that we have a conflict with the National Education Association's board meeting, so I don't see, unless there's anyone I'm not realizing is here for a union update. Okay, no union update. Roman numeral 5, we are on board announcements and follow-up. Are there any announcements or follow-up from members of the board? Yes, Board Member Beta.
Thank you, President Noble. I just want to make sure and follow up on my requirement to appoint a member to our audit committee. I have someone that would like to serve in that role, and so I don't know if we need to put that on our next agenda so I could make that official.
We do, and yes, we will put that on the next agenda. And I would suggest, I don't think there's there is maybe an audit committee meeting before that. But Superintendent, you can advise, I would say we could have that person attend, at least so that they start getting their head around it. They cannot vote until we put them on officially, and I would imagine it's unlikely that we will not approve that, but obviously we need to discuss that when it's on the agenda.
Okay, great. And then who do I coordinate with? Do they submit a letter of interest and a resume, or?
Board Member Abeyta, we'll put it on the next agenda. You can tell us a little bit about the nominee, and then we'll collect any necessary documents that they want to submit.
Okay, great, thank you.
But it's not an application, it's really just an appointment and somebody that you feel trusted in that position and on that committee.
Well, it's Mr. Blea who had applied for
okay.
this position,
Yes,
so
yes.
everybody feels
Yeah.
comfortable with him. So I reached out to
Great.
him, we had a discussion, and so he's the gentleman I'll be
Good.
bringing forward. All right? Thank you, Madam President.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. And the information, most importantly, will flow to him for orientation around the audit committee and
Yeah.
what happens there and all of those things. So,
Great, thank you.
thank you. And yes, Secretary Anderson, please.
Thank you, Board President Noble, Superintendent, members of the board. I just wanted to acknowledge that I have had some really amazing school visits to all of my schools, well, all but one. I'll visit Piñon tomorrow. And I wanted to thank Deputy Superintendent Romero and Associate Superintendent Kathy Casals and Associate Superintendent Michael Higley, and all of the principals who I've seen at Salazar, Milagro. Oh, hang on, sorry. Oh, wait, don't, I'm gonna get it. Kearney, Salazar, Milagro, Eco, Santa Fe High, and tomorrow I'll see Piñon and Nava, as I've seen Nava a number of times, depending on whatever child is having an emergency that day. But they've all been incredible. I was particularly impressed by the quality of instruction that we saw at Kearney. It was like watching a symphony director, an orchestra conductor monitor, second graders, and the garden at Salazar and the innovation at Salazar, the facilities at ECO, and the students getting excited about their programs, and all of the students at Milagro and the art programs, and the culinary program at Santa Fe High. And we don't have 2 hours for me to sit here and go on, but they've all been truly incredible. I look forward to visiting the last two of my schools, and recommend to any other board members that popping back in to see why we're all here is always recommended. So thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
May I add something, Board
Please.
President Noble? Also open invitation if you want to visit a school that you do not represent. I think that's also important for you guys to hear as well, because there may be a school out there you have an idea about or questions, and it's always great to get in there because it will change maybe what you think about a certain school or program. So again, open invitation if you want to visit any other schools as well.
Thank you so much.
If you are also interested in visiting the Early Childhood Center, we could do that tomorrow, and then we can look at some dates next week as well.
Thank you.
Any other key takeaways? I mean, you said quality of instruction, but
I mean, watching the second grade teacher not only keep classroom management going, but instruct in a relevant way and keep second graders moving their bodies during a time when it wasn't really like a body moving time was magical. And it was incredible speaking with the principal about the community that's been happening. They had a jazz band there for their first day of school, for before school. I don't know if you all saw in the Santa Fe New Mexican, but the community that they're cultivating is so impressive to me. And Kearney is actually the school that we're zoned for, but we go to Nava for various reasons, not because we don't love Kearney. But it was just so great seeing this school that's right in my neighborhood, with so many happy kids and so many just exceptionally talented teachers, and such a great leader, and great facilities and all of that. But it was magical. And the other thing, I definitely recommend that board members visit, but even more than that, I really recommend that parents and families go visit their neighborhood schools and other schools. Particularly, we were talking about Milagro and how excited they are to show people around their school. So really recommend that before people post on Facebook or search on Nextdoor, for the love of God, look at greatschools.com, please don't. But, but before any of that, that people call their school, their local school, and ask for a tour and to learn more about the school. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
It's wonderful, thank you, appreciate that.
Madam President?
Yes, go ahead, Vice President Bozay.
Thank you. I would like to share that I went to the open house at Desert Sage last week, which was really cool because not only do they have this 40-something kids attending in person, but there were a lot of the online students coming in for the open house as well, and kind of getting to meet the teachers that run this really cool and unique K through 12 program online, and then in person for the 7th through 12th graders. And, you know, I think it, again, like really magical to be able to keep kids engaged when you're doing stuff online. And the teachers that are teaching the in-person kids are just so enthusiastic and really excited about all the different possibilities that they have. And it's, you know, I think we all know a little bit about the facility there at the old Capshaw building, but they're just making the best of that. And the kids that are going in person are super happy and loving it, and the teachers are awesome and excited, and so is the administration. So it's very exciting, and I'm going to my school site visits next week, and I'm very excited about that. Thank you.
Great stuff, thank you. Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, mine's not as big as theirs, but I am going to go to Wood Gormley's movie night Friday night. So they have it, I guess they're going to have it once a month. So I'm excited.
Wonderful. And I'm guessing we'll hear some other exciting announcements from the superintendent, but for now, anything else in board announcements and follow-up? Okay, moving on to Roman numeral 6, superintendent announcements and follow-up. Mr. Chavez.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. Yeah, we have a lot of exciting, not a lot as normal, but we have some exciting announcements this evening. As you know, Acequia Madre Elementary School was named a 2022 National Blue Ribbon School last Friday by the U.S. Secretary of Education, Dr. Miguel Cardona, for improving academic performance over a number of years. Principal Dr. Dieter de Messenier, we call him Dr. D to make it simple, has led the school since July of 2021, taking the helm from Kathy Casals, who is now with us at the district level as an assistant superintendent and actually still oversees that school, so she's still a part of it, who served as principal from June of 2018 to 2021 when we promoted her. Was named assistant superintendent with the oversight for the school. It was a thrilling moment for Acequia Madre and the entire school district community. Acequia has never faltered in its commitment to high academic standards, doing all it can to engage students and families in learning through a creative arts curriculum. It's a model for the state and the nation. We're deeply proud of the school's outstanding leaders, including Mr. D and Assistant Superintendent Casals, and its teachers, parents, students, and staff. Please join me in applauding their excellence in education and dedication to students being educationally successful, physically sound, and socially aware of artistically inspired. Nationwide, 297 schools received this award. There were only 3 in the state of New Mexico, charter out of Albuquerque and an elementary from Texaco, New Mexico. So only 3 for the state of New Mexico. We have been, myself, Dr. D, and another staff member, have been invited to the award ceremony in Washington, D.C. on November 3rd and 4th. Teacher vacancies are at an all-time low. I think that's something to really glow about. The teacher vacancy rates are right now at 22. Last time I reported, we were 57, if I remember, 47? Okay, which is 2.3% of all teacher positions district-wide. 10 are regular ed and 12 are special ed, so those have also kind of evened out. But again, just really want to thank our HR department. She's back there, our executive director, Robin Noble, and her team for really doing a marvelous job of recruiting, but also getting them through the system, because as we know, It has been in the past, I'm not going to say now, in the past, a little cumbersome and time-consuming. So we do have 2 new hire orientations a week. We just had another one this morning to bring on some more individuals to the district. So again, just want to thank the HR department and the executive director for really doing a marvelous job of creating such low vacancies for the state, for Santa Fe Public Schools. As we know, it's an issue statewide and at the national level. So we're doing a great job of lowering the vacancies and the percentage. We have 9 EA openings and 9 EBA openings. And if you remember, those were the special educational assistants, to make it very simple. So again, we have 50 school site openings. That includes EBAs, teachers, could be secretaries, other personnel that really are based at the school. And that was down from 79 as last reported. So we've cut that by 29. So I want to say thank you again, Robin, and your team. And it's local week at the Santa Fe Public Schools Student Nutrition Department. Congratulations to Student Nutrition Director Betsy Cole for initiating a long-standing local week, which continues to grow. The effort provides fresh produce in our schools and gives local growers the opportunity to serve our school community. We even have an aquaponics farm participating in Santa Fe. During this week, our goal is not only just to have local produce like we always do, but also to get much of that local product in our schools as possible. We've received apples, peaches, plums, pears, nectarines, onions, watermelon, lettuce, spring mix, zucchini, bell peppers, cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, sprouts, and pea shoots. So again, we want to share with you the video that Cody created along with Student Nutrition and that we posted on social media.
If we didn't have farmers, we wouldn't have food in general. And this year has been a challenging year for a lot of farmers with the water issues that they've run into.
I became a farmer just 4 years ago, and I was stimulated by the discovery of the bad state we're in here in New Mexico when it comes to nutrition. Aquaponics is a technology that allows us to grow in an indoor controlled environment like this warehouse. We can make sure that the temperature, the humidity, and other environmental conditions are suitable and ideal for growing our plants. The way we fundamentally differ from other sources is that we deliver the day we harvest, and we grow in a way that produces product every week of the year. So in February, our lettuce is every bit as good as it is in the summer. And we can produce that throughout the year, ensuring a good, steady, consistent supply of highly nutritious food.
I will brag on our staff. They make amazing salads, and we serve salad almost every day in our menus. And we can buy local. We're able to do that by receiving it, sending it out, getting it on the tray within 2 to 3 days of harvest.
It's coming straight from the field. I'll pick it one day, the next day it's on the road to the schools.
When you can do that, the nutrient content is much higher. And so, of course, the goal is offering our kids the healthiest product possible. We try and do an annual local week where we're purchasing local, but the goal of the local week is not just to have local like we usually have, it's to try and have as much of our trays from local product as possible. And specifically, we try and do that on one day where as close to 100% of the tray can be local as possible. Purchasing local is an amazing way to support our community and our farmers. Local is New Mexico. New Mexico grown. Most of our product comes from either in Santa Fe or within about a 60-mile range of Santa Fe.
It's a strong addition to their diet, and fast food just doesn't hack it. So if we can get children in the community to recognize the value of nutritious foods, then it's a joy to have that be what I'm capable of doing here for them. Children are at a stage in their development where nutrition makes the most significant impact. So I get a very warm feeling when I walk into the greenhouse every morning and I see plants that I seeded a few weeks ago. And knowing that we're going to harvest those plants this week or next week and deliver them to the student nutrition services, and that children across the public school system will be enjoying those on their school lunch menus.
I would just like to thank all of our local farmers and all the people that I have been working with for several years that have provided us this amazing product over and over again with the pure, honest intent of just wanting to feed our kids healthy food. So the fact that we are even able to get food locally grown in New Mexico to support the economy is something that I'm really proud of as a school district.
Thank you, Cody. Again, great job producing another wonderful video, so thank you very much, Cody. Over 400 people attended our first ever movie night last Friday, September 16th. My deepest thanks to Crystal Ibarra, Chief Equity, Diversity, and Engagement Officer, Ruth Pettis, Event and Engagement Specialist, and the entire team from the Equity and Diversity and Engagement Department. Also want to thank Deputy Superintendent Christy Wagner and the entire operations staff, and Mario Sabidres, Executive Director of Safety and Security, and his team for the fun and enjoyable evening. In words of Miss Ibarra, the person at the popcorn popping machine was a rock star. And I did tell her we'll probably need a couple more popcorn machines. And those images, there you go, of last Friday's event. We had a popcorn machine, we had a glitter tattoo event. Then you can see many of the images of individuals having a good time. I did want to, mention, as I've talked to some of you, it was great to see teenagers there. It was great to see families with young kids. The most amazing part was seeing the students that attend Acequia or Wood Gormley or Gonzales or El Camino showing up with their T-shirts representing their schools. So it was really a great evening that all enjoyed, and we look forward to continuing to have some of these events to open up our schools to the community. So I want to say again, thanks to Crystal and her department. And then congratulations to the Santa Fe High Speech and Debate team for winning 8 medals at the Capitol Congress at the Roundhouse on Wednesday, September 21st, sponsored by the New Mexico Speech and Debate Association. Santa Fe High team consisted mostly of students who are new to congressional debate, but they also took home 3 first-place medals. Again, in addition, both Santa Fe bills, federal and state, passed in all chambers that heard them. The federal bill was to mandate the implementation of alternative power sources, and the state bill that they presented would mandate that New Mexico public secondary and charter school do not start any earlier than 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Again, we want to say congratulations to Lisa Goldman, the Santa Fe High gifted instructor who really leads this program. Again, the tournament represents a unique opportunity for students to simulate the legislative process in an authentic legislative environment. And I know Dr. Garcia was a big speech and debate person, so I'm sure that's why she's clapping. Oh, yeah. And then lastly, as we've always talked about school safety and security, we've added just today another layer. And we're glad to present this to you guys through my announcements. Meltwater is added another layer of safety and security, and it really does help us detect and notify us when threatening posts on social media is made against specific schools, or the district, or buildings. The program scans the internet to include social media and flags harmful messages or threats when our schools or districts are mentioned. So again, that was one of the glaring weaknesses in our safety net, was really trying to rely on our parents or our students to report to us whenever something went out on social media. So this is another layer that we just went through the orientation, myself and Cody today. So it will, we even have the app on our phone to receive notifications of a threat against a school. So again, we're trying to broaden that safety net, and this was a layer that we saw we had a weakness in, and now we're able to monitor the internet through this system. So again, just want to make sure that the community knows that we're continuing to add to our tools of safety and security of all schools throughout the district. And just want to say thank you to Cody for bringing that to my attention. And that does conclude my announcements this evening, Board President Noble.
Thank you, Superintendent. And just to officially welcome our previous superintendent, Dr. Veronica C. Garcia. Nice to see you. And Dr. Gonzalez.
President Noble, Superintendent Chavez, are the students, I mean, when you go online, there's tons of social media sites. How are they monitoring them all?
Yeah, and I think the person that can better answer this question is Mr. Donarski. He's really in tune to the social media and the online stuff, but we even walked through a couple scenarios today. And yeah, whenever somebody posts, doesn't matter who it is, and they mention, you know, my name, the school's name, whoever, it flags it, and it does notify us, good and bad, right? So there's a way to really filter it out. But Mr. Donarski, did you want to explain a little further?
Yeah, Board Member Gonzalez, members of the Board, Superintendent Chavez. It searches all over the internet. It searches Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, blog posts, news sites. I'm totally forgetting a bunch, but it looks for all the keywords. We have all the keywords set up to flag any posts that come with any you know, school name, any keyword that we set that's tied to another word. I think we have 30-something plus searches running at all times, updating every 10 seconds. So we get next to immediate updates, and it scours everything. I have seen social media posts that I've never seen before, because a lot of times when the only posts that we see are the ones that were tagged in, the ones that, you know, especially on Twitter, when they tag at SFPS District, not when they mention Santa Fe Public Schools or Santa Fe SFPS or whatever. So now with Meltwater, we'll be able to see every post that has any mention of us on it. So it scours all parts of the internet.
Any other questions on the superintendent's announcements?
Madam President, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Vice President.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you had a sense, or if anyone here had a sense of how much local food is served on a regular basis. Like, I couldn't tell if this was just a highlight where we're bringing in extra food during local week, or if this is something that's done year-round to a certain extent as well.
Yeah, thank you, Vice President Bose. I'm still getting used to that title, so I had to close my eyes and focus. So we do have an ongoing partnership, but it really is promoting our local growers this week. They were also at the farmers market making fresh salsa, so it's again showing that partnership between the district and our local growers, but it's an ongoing. I couldn't give you a quantity, and I don't think Mr. Romero knows. Yeah, I don't think we could give you an educated guess at this point, but we can come back and give you that information.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm just really excited that that exists. Thank you.
On that point, I'm wondering also if there's some easy numbers on how it's changed over time. Once upon a time, a number of years ago, when we talked about this, I remember being informed that the limiting factor was the growing season, and how in essence, you know, this is a perfect time, of course, because it's sort of harvest season, but that our school year does not overlap. So seeing the hydroponic and hearing the sort of potential of the year-round local produce is very encouraging, and I'm wondering if we are able to increase things with more hydroponic farming, just because, again, the limiting factor has been that the growing season doesn't overlap as much with our school year.
Yeah, and President Noble, I think I did visit Santa Fe Community College with Dr. Gonzalez at one time, and they had a great aquaponics
I was there
program.
too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I remember that. And they had a great program as well. ECO also was doing some smaller scale aquaponics things, so I think that's something to look at. I think that could be something for the future, especially for northern New Mexico when the weather shifts, especially late in the season.
Board President Noble.
Go ahead, Secretary.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I was at ECO today and got to see their greenhouse and their aquaponics setup, which was really cool. And they are growing a lot of food plants so that they can grow them in the greenhouse over the fall and the winter. And the instructor seemed really excited about being able to share what they had produced with the school, and then he said also with food banks as well. But having that program as it grows might be a great source as well.
And I think that's a great segue into when we build the new eco building, right? And being able to expand programming and even offering it on a larger scale. So that's something that we'll take note of.
Any other questions, comments on the superintendent's announcements from the board?
Board President Noble.
Go ahead, Secretary Anderson.
I debated about saying this because I didn't want to brag, but I was the sixth place state champion in the Oklahoma State speech and debate, Lincoln Douglas debate in 2001. So I feel uniquely qualified to extend my congratulations to the speech and debate. Speech and debate is a special kind of student and requires a special kind of dedication. And so I know that's a big accomplishment, so that's great.
And we have a very dedicated staff member, and she does reach out on occasion when she needs somebody to help advocate for her program. So she's valued.
That's great. If she ever needs judges for any tournaments, let me know.
And I just want to say congratulations on the vacancy rates and to acknowledge the work of the Human Resources Department. That's, there's a lot of factors at play, as we know right now, and we're glad for the raises that are there for the staff, but it is also really good to hear that our vacancy rates are quite low. So congratulations and thank you for all the work. Okay, moving on to our action items. Tonight we just have a consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull off and consider separately? Or are there questions, or is there a motion?
Madam President?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I do have a question on the contract over $60,000. I was just curious if this leadership training workshops, it didn't specify if it was for students or staff.
Vice President Bose, members of the board, it's for staff. It's for staff. They're going to work with staff on specific schools to work on leadership, transformational kind of change, and really vision of their sites. But it's going to be in collaboration, and really it's going to be a unique partnership because it's going to be site-based driven, right? It's not going to be a transformational curriculum that we're forcing them to accept. So it's going to be a partnership in this work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Dr. Gonzalez with the motion, Secretary Anderson with the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or otherwise? Okay, we've approved the consent agenda. Moving on to Roman numeral 8, our presentation and discussion. And just want to say that I am so pleased we are at this point. I, as a point of privilege, will frame it, if I may, before I turn it over to our Chief Strategic Officer, Dr. Veronica Garcia. This has been a long time coming. As some may remember, we passed a resolution in late 2019 to reimagine our district and look at some of the issues that we'll see enumerated in this presentation. It was a close vote. There were 2 board members at the time who supported a proposal to close some schools. And the majority of the board, 3 of us, elected to support this reimagining process with a crucial lens of equity. And this is work that we really, really need to do in Santa Fe. We have a bunch of structural issues, and, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure it's either, the pandemic came in early 2020, and we had to do a lot of things differently, obviously move to online instruction and operations, and it's been 2.5 years. I'm very pleased that we're here. We have a window, in part because there's stimulus funds, in part because we have strong revenue in our state, that we can do this without being in a financial crisis. I feel very strongly that we need to embark on this process with a great deal of trust and transparency, and the will to build trust in our community to do this without fear and cynicism. We are supported in some ways by the wins on the national level, where there are a lot of comments and conversations happening about the public education model needing updating. We haven't really updated it in a lot of time. We still operate primarily on an agricultural calendar, and there are complexities to all of this that I believe will require a great deal of courage from this district, from the team who will do the work, and most of all from the 5-member board here. So this almost certainly, well, it won't be easy. It will almost certainly not be imperfect. There will be plenty of reasons for criticism, and I hope that we can, again, sort of do this with open minds, open hearts, and trust that many of the advantages that we have in Santa Fe will serve us well. We often agree. We know that everyone loves their children in our schools, and really we have the advantages of being a community of a not too big, not too small size, where we can, listen well to lots and lots of voices and be inclusive. And I really, really hope that we can do something amazing and show the nation and the world what we are potentially capable of reimagining in Santa Fe. So tonight it is incredibly inspiring that we get to launch this process. Not everything is defined or perfect or clear. And so I hope we can really do the hard work to look at the systems and the structures and chart a path together that will do better in public education for this community and keep the whole thing really constructive and striving to do better for more kids, because we can. We have the creativity. We've already got a lot in place. The superintendent and I have been talking about many of the initiatives that we've heard over recent months that are emerging in our schools. And, where there's energy and strength, we should probably look to expand that. We don't need to reinvent everything from the ground up. We have a lot going already. And weaving all this together has so much potential, the opportunity we have right now. So I am so thankful for both these superintendents that we have here, and the good thinking that they bring, and the knowledge and savvy and willingness to be creative and to hear all of our crazy ideas, but also to say to my fellow board members, we need to guide this process. The decision-making will rest with us, and we have to, I hope, trust the process, trust the universe, trust the community to do this well. But tonight we get to get started. So with that, Superintendent Chavez, do you want to say anything before we go to Dr. Garcia?
Thank you, Board President Noble. And again, we were part of this process, a lot of this team, just in different roles. So we're familiar with this, and Board President Noble and I have been talking, and I think this is a great opportunity. As you mentioned, we have some stimulus money there. We have some partnerships already in place, so it's really about tying it all together and really looking forward, right? Not being afraid of what could come next. As we all know, we hear from our community members, students, and staff, they want something different. It really does go hand in hand with that survey that ConnectEd provided us and the data. So it really does show that they're craving for this right now. So again, just want to say, you know, we're with you in this. We'll continue to partner together, and we know there's going to be a lot of work ahead of us, and there could be some disagreements, but, you know, so long as we understand it's okay to disagree and it's all about the students at the end of the day, then we'll have a better district for us to really prepare our students in. And I thought I was going to be nervous with her sitting to my right, but I just don't look that way.
So welcome, Dr. Garcia, our now contracted Chief Strategic Officer.
Well, are we going to have feedback, or do I need to have my mic on? I do need to have the mic on? Okay. Well, thank you, Madam President and Superintendent, members of the board and staff. It's really exciting to be here this evening in this capacity. I was thinking about it as I was driving down here, what this reminded me of, and it's kind of reminds me of being a grandmother, because I get to play with everybody, and then you have the day-to-day responsibilities of keeping everything running, right? You know, and when we talk, the three of us, about, you know, what roles we could play, because this has been something that, and the board president was pretty modest in that, you know, she brought the resolution to the board. And one of the neat things about this is being able to, it's hard to be creative in a crisis, right? And so where the district is financially, you're able to breathe and have some breathing room, and the community to be creative as we approach this work. And so, I mean, how lucky am I? I love the Santa Fe Public Schools. I love this community, and to have the opportunity to work with people that I love and enjoy working with, but not having your responsibilities. It's like, wow, this is just really a great opportunity. I recognize that we have some new board members that I haven't had the opportunity to work with, and I'm excited to work with you. So this presentation will have a little bit of what you've already seen, those of you that have been on the board, and maybe some of you have seen this. But we want to make sure that, and for the public, right, we may have people that may have moved into our community or new to the district. So bear with me that there is a little repetition of what you may have seen. I don't like to read PowerPoints and really talk about these more conceptually, but there are some pieces that I want to hit, and then you can tell me, please, just, we got this, go to the next page, you won't hurt my feelings at all. So again, it's exciting to be able to work with you, Board Member Abeda, and Secretary Anderson, and it's good to see you again, Dr. Gonzalez, and Vice President Bose, and of course you, Madam President. So, all right, here we go. So as the President indicated, that the resolution was signed on February 18th of 2020. We actually started, I think, thinking about this even in October, but you know, it takes a while to bring things through. And I think in some ways having COVID, I always say COVID happened, the pandemic happened, has caused not only the Santa Fe Public Schools, but society as a whole to re-engineer and think about how we do things. And I think people are more open, right? Some of the things that we had suggested or think that you couldn't do, now people are so much more, we had to learn to be flexible to survive that, right? And of course, closing schools, you know, every time this discussion came up, it never felt for people that it was transparent or that it was collaborative or that there were any other, I mean, like that was the only option. And so this is not about closing schools, but affords us opportunities to look at how we address the issues that get us there and how we can prevent being in that crisis mode in the future, right? Of course, Yazzie Martinez, it's actually Martinez Yazzie, but in the lexicon, everybody says Yazzie Martinez. Obviously is, also has got us to thinking about how we deliver education. And, you know, when we think about that subpopulation, it's sort of like we're talking about a specific population. Do you know that it covers about 75% of the student population in the state? So it's really most of our students, right? All boats rise when we address those issues. So we have an opportunity to really address equity in a meaningful way. At any time that you want to stop me and ask a question, usually I used to make, when I was sitting in that chair, say, let's wait till the end, but at this point, I'll just go ahead and say, entertain a question if you have it. It's always good to know what's our theory of change, action or theory of change. I think those terms are used interchangeably, but why, you know, if we think we do X, then Y will happen, right? And we believe if we're transparent and we're collaborative, that our stakeholders will garner trust and commitment to the process. And that's our hope, that's our theory. We hope that we can prove that to be true. And the key value throughout this process is collaboration with all of our partners. And there's a definition, actually, of collaboration that we took from the National Network for Collaboration. Can you believe there's actually a network for collaboration? I found that sort of fascinating. Of course, I'm kind of one of those weird geeks, probably because I was a speech and debate, Vice President Anderson. If we go to slide 4, this is also an update and pending actions, right? But we want to provide for the board to be able to have consideration, a process, a framework, and a budget. And this is not, what would I say, limited to. It's sort of addressed terms like, right, equity or aging facilities or per pupil expenditures, school boundaries, interzone transfers. Not real sexy stuff, but is stuff that winds up being outrageously impactful if it's not addressed. And then the more fun and creative stuff, like how do we deliver schools? And I'm not as hip as board president, but she says I can riff on this stuff just off the top of my head, right? But I get so excited when you start thinking about possibilities, right? Whether we have IB, but other kinds of magnet schools, or what if you had, K through 3 that wasn't graded, or working with the state to get some of the same kinds of cool things that charters can do that we could apply for to do. The sky really is the limit, and I think that the Department of Education probably is, especially in the context of Martinez Yazzie, more open to looking at creativity in service delivery. And I think if you can produce the outcomes and have that, because that's what a charter is. A charter means an agreement, actually. I don't know if people know that, but it's really, this is our agreement with the state to deliver a sort of kind of program. So, why not think of ways that we might be able to be creative in the same way? And again, the Board of Education, I think through this process, and Madam President, that'll be your call in leading how the board can come together and just say via consensus that we support this process. This is a graphic that we developed back in 2020, but it just sort of gives you a conceptual framework for how this work could be done, right? So you see that the Board of Education is at the top and all things come down and all things go up. Lucky you guys, right? You get to be the deciders. And we have the steering committee in the middle, and throughout this process, if you notice that the box with community listening is the biggest box, because yes, we have a lot of ideas as professionals and educators and have a lot of experience, and but we need to spend more time listening than talking, right? To really hear what our community thinks works great and what doesn't work so great, and that's always a little painful, but we're tough and we can get through that. And district staff will be, weaving in and out based on what is needed, some in more than others. We may have legal issues or, you know, Cody, I think we're gonna get to work together again on like the webpage and communicating and then subject matter experts from within the district and from without, okay? And in some ways, and then of course, all of this facilitated in a project management process. And I'll talk about the differences between what I will be doing and what the project manager, if we wind up with a project manager, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So in terms of governance, the board president already talked to that very directly, that the Board of Education accepts and vets all recommendations from the steering committee, adopts policies and takes actions consistent with the collaborative process and theory of action as we work to enhance, you know, support of schools and enhance public-private partnerships. I want to stress this first bullet with our community. I think that if folks think, well, we participate in a process and we gave our input and we expect you to do what we said, and then you don't, you know, or it's nuanced and you kind of swish it and mush it and it looks a little bit different. Well, that was an icky process. I don't even want to engage in this then, right? And I mean, people have told me that directly when I was superintendent, that they had participated in processes like this before and had lost faith because they felt like it just went into the ether and nobody cared. And so I think it's important for people to know that you still are the elected officials that have to make that. Now, advice comes and you may take it just carte blanche, right, of the whole thing, looks great. Or you may not, but it's important for our stakeholders to know that as they engage in this reimagining process, that it's a give and take and a listening and working together, because you all, some people, a lot of folks have a certain interest and they know that one piece of the puzzle, and in their mind that makes a lot of sense, but they don't see that you've got the whole puzzle with those pieces. So I think as long as we're open and transparent about the rules, then people know if they want to play, these are the rules that we're playing with. The steering committee structure, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, and I think this is a page 6, that you want to tear out or highlight because you have some actions that you have to take too. I guess when I say take two, take as well. The steering committee structure, the names have to be submitted to the superintendents no later than October the 17th. And the steering committee will meet from 11 to 1, so it's during the lunch hour, so to speak, on the third Thursday of the month. So when you're asking people, because you're going to be asked for a rep on the steering committee, or if you hear, because I'll talk about the PTOs and PTAs and so on, they'll know that that is a time, because we got a lot of feedback that it was difficult, especially people with families and whatnot, to do it during the evening, and that time frame seemed to be more conducive because it's lunch hour-y and maybe you only have to take a half an hour off of work, you know, if you were going to participate, if you work during the day. The co-chairs are the board president and myself, and we had a discussion about the superintendent's role, and because it's back to the grandmother and the person that really runs the household, right? The superintendency is all-consuming, and this allows for someone who has that time to be able to lead that, but he will be very much involved in the process, for sure. And then each board member, so put a star by this, each of you will select one rep from your district. And so you can either ask for people to send you their names, or you can solicit names. I guess it's really up to them, right, how they want to do it? Or did you want one process for that, Madam President?
I don't feel strongly, and I think we can discuss it as a board how we want to do that.
Okay, so, but you all need to pick someone from your district to be on the steering committee, and if you can get that done by October 17th, okay? And then NEA Santa Fe, right? They'll have the president or designate. The same goes through for the Santa Fe Federation of School Employees. And then the PTAs or PTOs, I mean, they're all called different things. If someone is interested, they should, they'll get that information out. I'm looking at Mr. Donarski and the superintendent, but they'll get information out, and then they will, each PTO or PTA could decide how they want to submit their names, and then they will pick one for each of the 4 levels. We separated K-8 from middle school and from the elementary. The Santa Fe Principals Association will have 1 rep for each of those levels. The Santa Fe Community College president or designate, local tribal leadership representative, and I think you will be working with Nancy Davis when they have their government-to-government meetings with tribal leaders for education. They can pick someone from there. And the Superintendent's Equity and Diversity Council, 1 from each subcommittee. Just so you know, if you're not real familiar with the Equity and Diversity Council, this predated the requirement under Martinez-Yazzie to have one. They have 4 different committees. I'm not sure exactly what those committees are now, but they cover, you were on that, you know, they cover anything from LGBTQ issues to children with disabilities to African-American community, et cetera. So they will have 1 for each committee. And then the governmental and other partners will be invited as needed. So if we're dealing with an issue that would involve the county, then we'd ask representatives or from the city or state government as appropriate. Okay, and then you can read through the expectations. I think the only thing that I want to highlight here is the aspirational goal is 12 months. You know, it could go to 18 months, but the aspirational goal is 12 months. And that we'll really need everybody's help and encouragement to keep the momentum going, like in November, you know, in December when we were feeling like it's Thanksgiving and then it's Christmas and then, oh my God, now it's graduation or whatever, right? That we just keep cranking it every month and make it happen. And again, recommendations, request staff and consultant support is needed to make final recommendations to the board. Posting agendas and minutes on the district website. We want a web page devoted to this initiative so that anybody can read and know this is what happened in those committee meetings. This is when there's going to be a listening session or how I participate in a survey. So we really want to advertise that. This is a proposed budget. You notice it says maximum, and these dollar amounts will vary, but this is over the period of time. The Chief Strategic Officer, my role is to coordinate with the superintendent and the board president, provide guidance on structure to the project manager, attend committee meetings, and make Board of Education presentations as appropriate. But I'll be working with the project manager to make sure that all of the balls are up in the air and that we don't drop any. But the day-to-day kind of getting out the RFPs for the facilitators or ensuring that we have somebody that, well, we were hoping the project manager could be someone that is used to collecting data and interpreting data and doing all of that. Posts minutes, tracks progress, staffs all the meetings, and is feeding good information to Mr. Donarski so that it's all getting posted, making sure that we have staff members that need to be there or content specialists, et cetera, content matter experts. I do want to mention, just to make you aware, if you go to page 9, the RFP for the project manager is currently available for applicants, and we hope, you know, that we will get some. Was a little, I'm just telling you, it's been a little slim. And I think for I don't know what's going on in the world right now, but I hear it everywhere that you would think that there are people that want to work or do, you know, and a lot of things are going vacant, right? So please let us know. If not, I'll be working, and we've talked about that with someone that the superintendent designates, and then we may have to piecemeal some of this out. So regardless, we're going to make it work. And things that are super important, of course, having that web page, the input, and transparency. You see that down there at the bottom, right? we want to make sure that the public and you all are kept to date. We will become, the steering committee, via either me or maybe they'll want to present. We'll have to figure that out, and we don't know yet, like, how many committees we're going to have off of that and opportunities for people to participate. So that's where the Madam President was saying, it's still a little vague. We don't have all the meat on the bones, and that's a good thing, right? I think. But transparency is fundamental. And other issues of importance, of course, early commitment to this process, our focus on communication, having that out-of-district project manager we hope that we can get. And a preference doesn't have to be, you know, as long as they're culturally sensitive, but having bilingual facilitators, I think, is helpful, whether we're working in Native American communities or Spanish-speaking communities. And the district's creative and inventive work will continue during the process. So, as Madam President and the Superintendent, you heard today of wonderful initiatives and other things that are being changed or morphed or moving forward. It's not like they have to put a stop to that while this is going. So it's, again, like we're used to doing, right? Redesigning the plane while we're flying it. And that ends the presentation. So stand for any questions.
Dr. Gonzalez, and then we'll go to Board Member Abeyta.
Madam President, Dr. Garcia, I see the schedule wouldn't be appropriate for having students, but it seems to me like reimagining the future of education, it'd be important to hear student voices.
So I think, and we talked about that, if we could figure out a way to have students participate in the steering committee. And I think somehow that may have dropped off. I don't know, but we talked pros and cons, but for sure, we know that there will be listening sessions with students.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if you guys have any thought, I'm sorry, guys, Madam President. Where am I? I'm not in your office, Madam President, Superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. We have talked about that and trying to incorporate their voice in this. And so we'll continue to look at ways, if they want to participate, excusing them during the lunch hour possibly. Transportation's another issue that we have to work through. Some of them don't drive, so that's still on the table. We're still trying to figure out ways to incorporate that without disrupting educational time and also, you know, the to and from.
I can see that it could be complicated, but it just seems like an important voice to listen to.
Absolutely.
And if I may, I think we did land on that the steering committee was maybe not the best way. I mean, and that's sort of open for discussion, but for students to be engaged, and that we do want to ask our facilitators and Dr. Garcia and the steering committee to think about how to really robustly and authentically engage students. But that steering committee, will have a lot of kind of heavy lifting and maybe dry work, and I do, it's a great question, and I'm glad to bring my brain back there, and I think we've wrestled with, timing will never be perfect for anybody, and the steering committee, this is the piece that I find really difficult because it's already quite large. And how to use that and work with that, and representation will be imperfect on the steering committee, and as I said to Dr. Garcia and the superintendent, we talked about this 2 years ago, and now we've been talking about it again, and we haven't come up with any better ideas or different conclusions, so that tells me maybe we're at something decent, but it's certainly all of this is open for discussion, interpretation, and upgrade as we go forward.
Madam President, on that point?
Yeah, please.
Superintendent, or do you want to go first? Are you sure?
Yeah. I just wanted to add, thank you, President Noble. Something we did discuss, because it kind of triggered a memory, during, forums that would be facilitated by the project managers, when you can incorporate student voice. You can go on campus, really try to meet them where they're at. So I did remember that as you started talking, that was another option to really talk with our project manager on how to incorporate student voice, but also community voice in areas where they may not be able to get to 610.
Also, Madam President and Superintendent, committees might be short-term or long-term. And so while people will say, well, okay, that's a steering committee and it's a finite group of people, that doesn't mean that there may not be committees created that people might participate on a particular topic or issue, that it's not just only the facilitated process. So it's very fluid, and it very well may lend itself that as we get to a certain place, that there might be a student committee that works on just a set of issues. So I think this is a very dynamic framework.
And to the superintendent's point, just to underline that, and I realize I feel very, very strongly, almost so strongly that I feel like it's obvious that we have to go to schools. We have to go where people are. We have to use trusted ambassadors and ask for introductions in communities whose voices aren't as loud. And that, you know, it has got to be designed creatively so that we aren't sitting here in this room and asking people to come speak to us while we're on a dais and they have a microphone there, that we have to think about the environments and where people are and what will create the conditions for really authentic engagement and input into this process. Board Member Beta.
Thank you, Board President Noble. That was just it, student engagement. And so I'm glad to hear that we're already thinking about that and we're going to figure out ways to do that. And I think it's important, though, that when we put out information like this, like a roadmap, we should show somehow, once we figure it out, students involved in the process. But I like what I'm hearing, and I think, yeah, we'll define as we go how we get that, because that's going to be a challenge to figuring out how to get them engaged and keep them engaged. So thank you, Madam President.
And may I add something, President Noble? And I think it's important to note, and we all know this, but for the community to hear that whenever we're publishing information, creating, you know, agendas or presentations, that they both are in English and Spanish. So we'll make sure that we also talk about interpreters, you know, in these community events, and really utilize the tools that we have available to get as many voices to the table as possible.
Secretary Anderson.
Board President Noble, thank you. Board President Noble, members of the board, superintendent. What are the best ways? All of this sounds so amazing, and I really love the idea of having it be flexible and fluid and accessible to people, and listening sessions and meeting people where they are. How do we as a board stay how do we stay plugged into this process? I mean, it's obviously like we can't and shouldn't as a board be individually like sticking our fingers in and guiding things where they go, but how do we kind of know what's going on and know what's not exactly what's being said to ambassadors, but get the general picture of what's happening while it's going on?
If I may. So Madam President, Superintendent, I feel like I don't know where am I? Am I at the legislature? I'm at a board meeting. But Secretary Anderson, members of the board, I haven't done this like in 2 years. You know, I haven't spoken before a body or done anything like this, so I'm losing my mind, so just bear with me. But in this, what was the question? No, I'm just kidding.
It was very long.
How do you stay plugged in? Well, several ways. One, through that website, it's supposed to post everything there. And so you can be great critique, our critical friends, and let us know, like, you know what, I can't really tell what's going on, and I am somewhat plugged in, and I'm reading the website, and I'm not getting it. So that's one. Secondly, through your constituents. Third, we intend to have updates to the board bi-monthly. But if you want them once a month or whatever, I guess, you know, you can decide, or every 6 weeks, what makes sense to have updates to the board is another way. But if you have suggestions, we're open to that. I mean, it's really what you all want to do with it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was going to say, you know, we might even want to just have a standing discussion item on our agenda where we can talk about it, have updates, bring up things. You know, as we talked about the student engagement picture, and I very much appreciate Board Member Abeta's, you know, point that we need that on the visual. You know, And Dr. Garcia's point that, you know, we might want subcommittees and there could even be, you know, board members leading some work to, you know, think about how to engage students and other members of our community in these really authentic ways. I mean, I feel very strongly, not only should it be bilingual, but we need to have some Spanish language content and sessions so that we are not asking Spanish speakers to always work through interpretation. You know, it needs to be in Spanish and have those discussions. You know, and part of what I think we are doing and need to do is really develop our explicit commitments as a board. You know, we've talked about them a few times, but it would be great as even a first piece to have the board's explicit commitments to this process. And there are a few things here that include transparency and some of the things that are on the slide, but in hearing Dr. Gonzalez and Board Member Abeyta, you know, student engagement is paramount. I also just wanted to, I had written down, you know, centering teaching and learning and students. And I think everybody, plenty of you have heard my story that I got to this board and we sat in this format in a study session within my first 2 months on the board and talked about closing 3 schools. And I found it incredibly difficult, and I have a lot more appreciation for the reason we were talking about numbers and dollars and utilization rates and all of these things. But at the time, being a new board member, I really was disoriented because nobody was talking about teaching and learning, and nobody was talking about students. And the whole thing to me, I mean, I am truly driven by a desire to not do that again, to make sure that through this process we center students and teaching and learning and how we do our core function better. And not, you know, again, I have a lot more sympathy now for what happens in a budget crisis and why we were having that conversation and the shorthands that the numbers provide. But I do think how we talk about this matters, and we need to talk about it with the core of students and them at the center of everything.
Madam President?
Yes, please.
My other thought, you know, that is that I'll work with the project manager and with you all, but as we kick off this process with the steering committee, one of the first pieces are what are the essential questions? You know, questions are so important. And I can't imagine that we would not have some process, whether it's in writing or in person or at the next meeting, that you'd be thinking as individuals and as a board, what are essential questions that you want to know, right? Because, you know, you all ran for this. This is all something that's really important to you of what our school's like. And as leaders and visionaries, what are essential questions that you want to hear? And so I think through what we hear from you, what we hear from the steering committee, will also help guide the work. I think that's going to be one of the first things that needs to happen. And reimagining it, I mean, that's really fun, huh? When it's just like a blank slate and you can, I'm sure, so you should probably have lots of great questions.
Well, and I know Dr. Garcia has heard this in my, we'll go with paid work world. We did a statewide needs assessment for early childhood, and we followed some key research questions that were actually developed, I think initially by a project out of the 8 northern pueblos. And the questions were very simple. There were 4 of them. What's working? What's not working? How do you want things to be? And what's getting in the way? And that provided a reasonable unifying framework for us to then, you know, put things together. And there's a lot that can fit under this, you know, in terms of when you start thinking about how you want things to be. People answer that question often in really wonderfully different ways, because sometimes it can be about the environment, just the physical, every student should have more time outside or something like that. And sometimes it can be, very high level, almost wonky. And sometimes it can be, just incredibly simple. When we did the exercise of the attributes of a graduate for the Santa Fe Public Schools, which was a part of, as I think you all know, the strategic plan, I still love Lorraine Price's answer best of all. And we're all saying, it's someone who's engaged and supportive of community and all these big concepts. And Lorraine Price says, I want somebody who's going to be a good neighbor. And, sometimes those simple pieces are best. But also to say, as we get creative, another piece I think we've talked about, I certainly hope so, with the project manager, is looking for good examples around the country and ideas of what's happening, not to bring any model here and transplant it. That never works. But maybe to take pieces of what's going on and fit them together and adapt them. We don't have to come up with all of the creative ideas out of our clear blue sky brains. We can look around, and I know the superintendent's already done some of this. We've talked about what if the district was a bunch of magnets, and what if we did away with zones? What if we, I hadn't known about K3 not having grades, kind of like
K5.
that. And Dr. Garcia has been very good, because obviously we've been having these conversations for the better part of a long time now, and what's fun, and I would encourage, all of you, and I hope, Dr. Garcia, you're open to, I can't imagine you wouldn't be, but, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, but conversations with board members individually and chewing on things. I have had that opportunity in lots of ways, and every time I get a wild idea, I feel like Dr. Garcia has been able to say, well, back in this state in this year, they tried that, and this is what happened, because, it's very hard to come up with original ideas. And so we have the benefit of an incredible well of knowledge and a great brain of somebody who, can say, yeah, the problem with that model was this, that, and the other. And, I have had a number of wild ideas. Some of them have been better than others, but none of them have been new to Dr. Garcia, I don't think. I hope maybe by the end of this process I'll have one that surprises her. But, we need to do that ourselves, and I hope that we can get great engagement from our community in doing the same thing. Dr. Gonzalez?
Madam President, I think the state is also doing a high school redesign, so it seems like that ought to be,
Again.
yeah, again.
Madam President.
Go ahead, Vice President.
Thank you. Along the lines of stakeholder engagement, we talk a lot about public schools and the importance in democracy, and I think that when I was listening to Dr. Garcia present, that's what I thought. Like, elections, we never get 100% of what we want, and we still have to participate. Like, that's how we make our voices heard. And I know that everyone in our community has things to say about our schools, and some that are positive and some that are not positive, and we're not going to deliver 100% of what 100% of the people want. But please still participate, because this is how we can make change happen. Thank you.
Madam President, just a little anecdote. You probably, I don't know if you remember this or not. Do you remember who the sponsor was of the high school redesign? That had, dual credit and, taking online courses and all that? Your good friend, Senator Nava, Chair of Senate Finance. She carried that piece of legislation for us. You have to tell her that we mentioned her name today, right?
Other thoughts on how you want this to be?
Madam President.
Go ahead.
I would love to have monthly updates. That's my opinion about that. I'm very, very excited to finally be working on this, and I want to hear lots about it. Thank you.
I too would like monthly updates.
Madam President, I would like daily updates if that's possible. I'm kidding.
We'll send you a little text. We're working.
I think that's a good idea and a good way to sort of keep, shoveling coal into the engine or whatever we need to do for the steam train. As Dr. Garcia said, I would really like us to do this, by the end of 2023. I'm really hoping this board can do this. I don't know, we do have elections next year. That's the kind of thing that, again, fortunately or unfortunately, we have political cycles that we do. And we're embarking on this. It will be, if we have any new board members, the whole thing could be, well, we'll see. But, I think it would be good for us to engage our community robustly, move forward with as much consensus and, deep roots in the community, but really by the end of next year. So not a full 18 months is my hope. Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, when is this actually going to start, the steering committee?
Madam President, members of the board, we did, I think that we said the third Thursday.
We said the third Thursday.
And the names, though, come in next month. So I don't know, if there's a possibility to accelerate that or not, so that we could have the first meeting in October.
It's never Thanksgiving, I can tell you from doing mix for 10 damn years that met on the third Thursday. Thanksgiving never falls on, it's the fourth Thursday.
But,
Sorry.
yeah, because otherwise then we're looking at November.
Right, and
Superintendent, you're really good at this, so what do you think?
Well, I'm thinking first, I think the first important date's the one in October with names and nominations. I did just briefly lean over to President Noble and mention if we receive many names, especially for PTAs and PTOs, there has to be a way to really identify one. Correct. And so that's why I'm thinking that's the first important date, and then maybe a short welcome thereafter to really introduce them to the work. Could be in the works, but I think the most important date right now is getting those names to my office by September, October.
Probably start in earnest in November.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe a welcome kickoff late October, but with those that are on the steering committee.
Why did we pick October 17th?
We picked it because we were.
You said that's right. I'm just wondering if we.
The 15th was I think it was like to give people a little bit of time.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we might move it to the 12th, which is a Wednesday, so that we might have our first meeting on the third Thursday in October, which is a little over a week after that.
Board President Noble.
And we
sorry.
may, just to finish the thought, we may need, a subcommittee of the board, 2 board members, I would say not me, to assist with what the superintendent just said, that if there's the need to sort through and make some selections, that board members maybe would do that between, on the 13th or 14th, at the end of that week in October, so that we could notify folks and ask them to come to a meeting on the 20th, just so that we don't lose October or have to do a perverse thing of having our first meeting on a 4th Thursday.
Board President Noble.
Go ahead.
2 things. One, I'd be happy to help with that. It would be, as a former PTA board president, I've done it, it's just speech and debate, board PTA president. I'd love to be involved in that if no other board members would like to, or more than one other board member would like to do it. I just had a question about that, about choosing our member. Did we want to have a conversation now about how, whether we want to publicize it or just choose someone, or what are your thoughts? Should we just leave it up to each board member how they want to do that process? If I want to post on social media, then I do it to get lots of names. lots of, I'm really overstating my social media presence. But like, you know, however, if Sarah has someone in mind, or sorry, Vice President Bose has someone in mind, she can just pick that person, or do we want to have a standard?
I personally don't feel strongly and would welcome other comments from the board. I saw 2 nodding heads as to each board, behind you as to each board member doing it their own way.
Yes.
Okay, there seems to be consensus around that. That's probably simpler. What else?
So, Madam President, I guess I assume the fact that people are getting board members, that this is the commitment to move forward?
Yes. I think we can assume a commitment to move forward. Speak now or speak later. That's your right. Dr. Garcia, can you unpack a little bit your point about essential questions?
Well, I mean, I think your 4 questions could very well be the essential questions, but I think it'd be great to give them an opportunity to just have that conversation about, you know, what are the 4 major here are 4 questions that could lend themselves very well to a very open conversation. But there may be something else specifically that people feel they want to get input on. And so that's about as far as I can unpack it. I didn't have a specific question in mind. But I think something that's open-ended enough. Are we on track? Are we going to get this done in time? We're making progress. This committee hasn't submitted their stuff. That's very different than the facilitators that we want to hire to actually go out into the community and engage our communities in different ways. I'm doing sort of the bigger strategy, ensuring that all the pieces are moving, but it's really the project manager that will ensure that it's keeping us on track. And facilitators play a very different role.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll see what we get in the RFP. You know, again, our experience with the needs assessment was we did contract with a number of bilingual facilitators individually, and the project manager, which I guess was me, would work with them. And in almost every room, you know, it did become an art of framing the question, even if the same sort of question was foundationally there. We actually did one session in a grad's classroom at Capitol High, which was wonderful. But that was perhaps the session that was the hardest to get going with some of the young parents there. You know, it took some work, but we had a very skilled facilitator. And then when, you know, the dam broke, the input was amazing from those young parents.
You know, Madam President, I was thinking about when we started off with Project North Star. Some of you may have participated in that when I first came on board my first year, where we were trying to just get back to what was the spirit and what was important to people just generally in the district, in our community. And then from that, we moved into the attributes of the graduate. But for both processes, which was a big year-long community listening process, the best input and the most innovative input that we received were from the students. It was amazing. The students, the deep thinking and the quality of input was just really phenomenal.
Board Member Secretary Anderson.
Thank you, Board President Noble, Superintendent, and members of the board. I have 2 questions, one for the superintendent and one for the previous superintendent. Could you tell me, I think we talked about this at the board retreat and I've now forgotten where the RFP is, or could you email it, or?
Yeah, thank you, Secretary Anderson. I'm still getting used to that
Yeah,
one
yeah,
too.
me too.
Yeah, I can email it to you, but
Okay.
it also can be found on our website.
Okay,
But
cool.
I think it might be easier if I just send it to you.
Okay, that would be great.
Right,
I'd
I'll
love
do it
to
right now.
see if we can find someone. And then, do we have a working, is there like a best practices definition for equity? Do we have a working definition for that?
Well, there are a variety of them. It's a very basic one. I don't know, I think we did that in one of the leadership academies with one of the groups, and I can't think of anyone who was in the first one with me, but they worked on a definition of equity for the district that I don't think we ever adopted. I don't think we've ever adopted one for the Santa Fe Public Schools, have we? A definition of equity. But, and I think it's actually been a conversation in the Equity and Diversity Council, and I don't know, if we need to check with Crystal if we actually defined it there. I think we may have. Yeah, okay, Cody's saying yes, and other people, yes. So I think that we can dig through and see if we can find it.
Madam President, I just wanted to say I'm so excited. This is really thrilling. So thank you so much for putting this together, and thank you so much, Board President Noble, for bringing this before the board.
Well, that's great to hear. Glad you're excited. I'm
Madam
truly
President?
excited as well. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Gonzalez.
I can work with Sarah, if you'd like, 2 people to evaluate the
Sasha.
applications. I mean, Sasha.
Sasha.
Sorry. I know, I'm looking at you. It's
We were
Sarah.
in a merge together.
And you're in a what?
We were in a merge together.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's great. So Superintendent, you have your board members who can help sort through things. And a couple of other things, just as a point of privilege, I also want to recognize the, I believe, president of the PTSO for NAVA, who's here and has been an important thought partner and deeply engaged conversation, a partner for me, and has been really thinking deeply about this. And, you know, speaking of bright spots, you know, we have a lot of innovation already going on in our schools, and I know that Secretary Anderson knows this, but the PTSO at NAVA is amazing. And the way that the students engage in that group, it is not parents and teachers, it is truly a parent-teacher student organization. And, you know, there is something that many schools can learn from that and how it works and how that culture has been built. I am in awe of it every time, and am deeply appreciative of that. So, you know, there's lots of these just incredible strengths that we can unpack, and, you know, as we talk with Dr. Garcia more and hopefully get a great project manager on board, we can hopefully figure out, you know, there's some things to do. There's looking at ideas from the national scene. There's making sure that we have incredibly robust listening processes going where people are engaging with trusted ambassadors and making sure we uplift voices. And there's identifying all of these, any number of these bright spots and strengths that we can build upon. One other small update I wanted to provide to the board is just to say that I have had a couple with the superintendent and even Dr. Garcia conversations with private foundations about some private sector support for this effort and or for the public schools. And I'm very appreciative that we have foundations and a business community and you know, lots of folks who might not, well, who recognize the foundational importance of the public schools to everything in the community. So, you know, it's also partly as we go out as the ambassadors that we are for the school district and the work that we do here in our community, you know, to say we should never assume that it is outside somebody's area of interest. As we learned when school started this year, you know, you all know I spent a lot of time at the city, including overseeing long-range planning. Turns out schools are in charge of a lot of that. We determine traffic patterns. You know, our schedules are foundational for what happens in this community in lots and lots of physical ways. And so everybody can and should have an interest in the work that we're doing, and we may have, you know, some other partnerships that can run alongside this and hopefully enhance what we're doing here. Not sure how exactly that looks, but I'm just glad for the engagement and interest and understanding of the importance that is so widely held here.
Madam President.
Go ahead.
Thank you. If I could, both along the lines of what you were saying and also the definition of equity, when I was campaigning 3 years ago when this discussion was happening at the school board, so much of the listening that I did during that time was from these schools that were, you know, potentially on the chopping block at that time, and hearing about all the wonderful things that were happening there. And I think that led me to very clearly understanding what equity is not, and that is squashing things that are working. And I just, like, we have so much good stuff and magical things that are happening. Let's build on that, and let's bring everyone up in a way that really benefits all of our students and teachers. Thank you.
Hallelujah. What else? I think I've managed to get out most of the thoughts.
Madam President
ahead.
and Superintendent, while we're trying to get ready for our first meeting, would I have your permission to go ahead and meet with individual board members and have that conversation so that I have some context when we meet with the steering committee on framing essential questions?
I think that's a wonderful idea. Thank you. And I hope board members can, you know, think deep thoughts and download them to Dr. Garcia.
I'll work with the superintendent to get your, I have most of your contacts, but I don't for you.
Right, and that's what I was going to mention, just sending an email so you guys can have the contact information both ways.
Okay, that'll work. Thank
Yep.
you, sir.
Okay, anything else on this topic? Superintendent? You're good? Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Garcia, for the presentation. Thank you, Maya, for being here and reminding me of all the great conversations we've had on this over the years. And thank you all for, you know, thinking about this and what you will do, because again, it will be somewhat difficult. We will hear conflicting things, you know, and we can do it well. I know we can. The opportunity is so enormous here, and this is really one of the big things that Santa Fe needs to tackle. And we have an opportunity, and I believe we have the talent around this table and in the community to do it well. So off we go. Okay. Roman numeral 9, board discussion and possible action. We have nothing listed. We will be taking action on Board Member Abeta's nominee to the audit committee next time. Anything else for future meetings? Not at this time. Everybody's brains are, you know, deeply reimagining.
Madam President, do we bring our nominees on the 13th at the board meeting?
I think we just give them all to the superintendent, and then you and Board Member Anderson will be his additional eyes in terms of looking at the committee so that hopefully we can get balance and diversity with, you know, the representation and the submissions. And I think, Superintendent, that you will be, just to say this out loud, you will be managing the outreach process for the folks coming from PTAs, PTOs, PTSOs, as well as Principals Association, NEA, and the Santa Fe Federation of School Employees, and, you know, the other things. By October 12th.
I wanted to mention that again, October 12th.
October
That was a
12th, not
change.
as stated in the presentation. And I think it's probably worthwhile for you all to get a meeting on the calendar to wrestle with this pool of names that you'll have. So ideally that we can get notices out by the 14th so that people can plan to come to the meeting on October 20th. All perfectly clear. And thank you for doing that. It, like many things, might be easier than we think, might be harder than we think. You just got to walk through it. Okay.
Well, I feel very comfortable with Dr. Garcia leading this effort. She knows a lot.
She knows a lot. I would second that, Dr. Gonzalez. I feel very comfortable. She knows a lot, and, you know, it's the, when you get the combination of creative thinking and expertise that we have in this human, I think it's really worth using it for the big, hard things that you need to do, and you know, she also has a lot of goodwill, and, you know, I think it's because she has always been honest and transparent in her work, and, you know, will help us make sure that we stay on that track. And the transparency piece, I must say, has been, you know, very clearly something that she has elevated as important through this process, and I wholeheartedly agree. But there will be plenty of other things that Dr. Garcia brings to the table and help us do this better.
Thank you. I'm very humbled, and thank you for your kind words. I think what's most important to me is I love this district and this community, so to have the opportunity, you know, I think you all know how heartbroken I was when I did have to leave, and it's just, I've been able to work with the district a little bit last year, and to be able to be part of this process, I'm humbled and honored, and I just love this community. So to be able to engage again, I'm just like beaming. I'm so happy. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
I do hope we don't take you away too much from your role as grandmother.
like with my real grandchildren?
Yeah, right.
Okay. On advanced planning, any changes?
No changes, but we will have an exec session on the 13th.
Okay, good to know. 4:30 on the 13th. Anything else? Anyone? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much, and have a good evening.